This is the Shoemaker Films Podcast.
This is the Shoemaker Films Podcast. I'm here with Mollie Plotkin, entrepreneur, owner of Mollie Plotkin Group.
That is correct.
Talent agency, Speakers Bureau. Do I have that right? Speakers Bureau, agency?
You absolutely do.
Okay. Tell us about what you do and kind of go from there.
Sure. So, we had really started out years ago as a sports marketing agency.
Okay.
And the reason we started was I personally had been looking for an agency that represented athletes in Philadelphia, that when I was working with nonprofit groups, things like that, that if we wanted to bring an athlete out to raise the profile of the event, I'm sure there'd be an agency that I could call.
Yeah.
To my amazement, there wasn't. So who we are and what we do started off, really, our niche was the world of sports.
Okay.
We wanted to fill that gap of, especially corporations, looking for an athlete to come out, do an appearance, do a speech, do anything that they needed to be that hub. Mm-hmm. Within 18 months, we really morphed from being a sports marketing agency to a keynote speaker agency that focused in the world of sports.
Wow.
From there, we just greatly expanded and now represent thought leaders and business leaders, authors, and everyone in between.
That's amazing. How long ago was that? When did you actually start the agency?
So the first time I started the agency was almost 20 years ago.
Okay.
So we ran that for 5 years, put a pause on it, and then restarted 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So how did you get into the sports marketing world? What's your background? What's your career look like?
So at that time, I was a stay-at-home mom with 3 young kids. My youngest was 2 years old. I was chairing an event for a local nonprofit. I was very involved in my community. And it was when I was speaking with people within the organization, and we thought, okay, we really need to raise this profile for this event. We want there to be more ticket sales. We need a good lure, let's say. And it was during that time when we couldn't find an agency that did it, that I started one that did. Because I simply figured that if I was looking for it, other people were.
Yeah.
And the beauty of naivete is you just jump into a business without giving it a second thought.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it, right?
Yes.
So did you just start cold calling athletes, or what were those early days like?
So the secret to my success has always been I happen to know a lot of really interesting people. And I have a lot of wonderful friends, and those friends were business people, and they had started their own businesses. They were leaders within their organizations. And I just simply went with the premise that everyone is someone's neighbor.
Yeah.
It can't be that hard. If I just needed to locate someone, I really felt I could do it. And this was 20 years ago. So certainly the internet and Google were not what they are today.
Yeah.
And what happened was I met one player who then introduced me to another player, and then they told their coach. And then the coach said, we've got a whole team of coaches that would love your services. And it just grew that way.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fast forward to 5 years ago, what was that kind of like? You rebranded, or you focused more on speakers at that point?
We did. Well, what I had found was over the years, I kept getting, my athletes would reach out to me and say, when are you going to go back into business? Like, we really need you. There's no one out there who does exactly what you do. And they certainly haven't done it anywhere near the way you did it. And what has always set us apart is we really manage the talent that we work with. We want to make sure that we help them refine their speech. We help them refine what they enjoy doing. Do they like speaking to a small crowd? Do they like speaking to a large crowd? Do they do better at a moderated conversation, fireside chat? Or are they ready to do a powerful keynote in front of 5,000 people and a huge audience? And also really give them concierge service to make sure that they are able to focus on doing what they enjoy doing, and we're their team behind them, helping them get there. So that is really, what wasn't being filled, and frankly still isn't. So that has always been one of our strengths.
Yeah. Having that kind of dual.
Yeah. And so really when the athletes started saying, every couple months I'd get something just on my personal Facebook page, like, when are you coming back? And I thought, okay, so 5 years ago I did. And after a lot of really going back and forth, I just felt that as much as I love working in the world of sports, it was also really important to be able to bring other people's stories as well.
Sure. So you started branching out into business leaders and
Absolutely.
So today, how many people do you represent?
So we work with 370.
Okay.
We have what's called a hybrid model. So we work with people directly, we work with people exclusively. We also partner with many agencies that have the same philosophy as us. And when we work with our other agencies, they are great team members. So because of that, there's really no one that I don't work with or can't work with.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed. I went to your website and I just started seeing, all of these heavy hitters, Tom Brady, and then even like Seth Godin and things like that. So, I mean, it seems like you have access to virtually anyone that's out there. Is that essentially how it works? You just have relationships with other agencies that you can partner with?
Yes, but I can also say, Seth Godin is a great example.
Okay.
We really pride ourselves. We only work with people that we do have the opportunity to know. So Seth is one of those great examples. He is not only one of the smartest people you will ever meet and will open your eyes to thinking differently when it comes to branding and marketing and business and entrepreneurship. I can say from the heart, he's also one of the nicest people you will ever know. I'm very proud to call him a friend. And because I know him so well and I know what he delivers so well, we recently brought him to Adobe and we did a virtual event.
Okay.
And their production company came back and said in all of the years that they have been hosting these large events, they have never once hosted one that had zero drop-off rate in a 1 hour presentation.
Wow.
And so that way I can tell my hiring clients, I know that by bringing Seth out to this audience, you're taking an investment of this audience's time, an investment of your resources, an investment of Seth's time. I am telling you, he's the perfect person for this event, and he was.
Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, it's probably an art form being able to almost play matchmaker to an event, a speaker, who's the audience. I can see how that's, probably really fun to do.
It is. And it's funny because years ago, there was an article written that the title was that our business was in the matchmaking business, but not the dating kind. And that is very, very much what we do.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about a little bit more about so you have speakers that are exclusive to the Mollie Plotkin Group. How does that work? I mean, you have why would, how does that work? Just tell me a little bit more about the business.
Sure.
I guess. Yeah.
So for a keynote speaker or an entertainer who's at that level where they really are a well-run machine, their business is growing, we become their back office. We're then able to help effectively market them. We handle all of the logistics. And we also, one of our strengths is, as I mentioned earlier, partnering with different agencies so that we have that opportunity to call our partners and to say, okay, this is the new keynote speech. This is the new entertainment they're doing. These are new things that the trends that we're seeing for our hiring clients call us. If you're having the same, put this person at the top of the list because they really have refined it, and we know this is what a lot of corporations are looking for. Because everyone has established relationships with different hiring clients, and we want to be able to service everyone's needs. So it's really the full management and marketing is why our talent really says, okay, it's time for us to be exclusive with you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Who are some of are you able to share some of the exclusive? I saw Vince Papali is one. Who else is exclusive to MPG?
Well, our exclusives, some of our newest are really fascinating people. A gentleman named Tobias Elwood. He is considered one of the leading geopolitical strategists in the world, former UK Parliament Defence Minister. He is unbelievable, and we have him right now. We've also gotten into PR. We have him all over the news. So he's a name that you can just Google and you can get all of his thoughts after the Munich Security Conference and everything else going on in our world. Tobias Elwood, phenomenal. David Kwong, who is almost challenging to describe, because when people say multi-hyphenated, he is that. Everything from graduating from Harvard, but starting the Magic Club at Harvard with Adam Grant, to becoming an author where he wrote Spellbound, The 7 Principles of Business Based on Magic, to becoming one of the leading writers for film and TV, anything that has to do with a puzzle. So anything from the Now You See Me series to the Imitation Game.
Oh, okay.
David Kwong is the person who's been doing the puzzles. He also has a performance called The Enigmatist that did a sold-out run at residency at the Kennedy Center, Chicago Shakespeare Company. So David is amazing. And to see his performance, and right now we're in the golden age of puzzles. So any audience that's looking for something interactive and interesting and different, David Kwong is definitely the person to talk to. Recently, we signed a phenomenal woman named Barbara Butcher. Okay. Barbara has not one but 2 Netflix series. One has been dropped, one hasn't. She is a former homicide crime investigator for New York City. And she wrote a book, What the Dead Tell Us, which was a bestseller. Again, amazing. Think Law and Order come to life.
Yeah, true crime. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, go to Netflix and just Google Barbara Butcher. You're going to want to see her show. And then, of course, Julie Wainwright, who was the creator of The Real Real, the 23rd woman to ever bring a company public. She has a book coming out also in June that will, without a doubt, be a bestseller. And when you talk about someone who is a true inspiration in the world of entrepreneurship and grit and tenacity and Silicon Valley and everything else, it is Julie Wainwright.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is amazing. Do you have, I know you love all your clients. Do you have a favorite one or any stories you want to share or anything like that?
I would say the most overused phrase I have is, this is my favorite client. Because the truth is, I'm very lucky that I only want and have to work with people I genuinely like. Yeah. And so they really are my favorites. And they all become my friends. And I'm just very, very lucky. So as much as I would love to say there's one that's my favorite, that would be challenging. Yeah. But I can say the one that I've without a doubt learned the most about life, both personally and professionally, is Kevin Riley. And Kevin Riley played for the NFL. He's born and raised in our area, Wilmington, Delaware, Villanova, played for the Philadelphia Eagles with Vince Papale, Ron Jaworski, Bill Berge. He went from being a starting player with the Philadelphia Eagles, his hometown heroes, to, while he was still in his playing days, finding out he had a desmoid tumor in his left shoulder, which left him at Sloan Kettering being given last rites before surgery that he didn't know if he would survive. He did, but lost his left arm, left shoulder, and top 4 left ribs. Oh my goodness. And his story is so uplifting and powerful. And he's just one of the, again, kindest, nicest people that you will ever meet. And I've never in 20 years brought him to an audience that didn't end with a standing ovation. Yeah.
What an amazing job that you have in building, just being able to listen to and be around such inspiring and motivating people. That's great. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. And actually, another point that you made too, one of the best things about being an entrepreneur and running your own business, you get to choose who you work with, how you work, when you work, right? I mean, that's probably one of the biggest perks I'm finding. So
it is really true. And I have to give so much credit to my husband, who truly has made me a better business person, because what he helped me identify early on is, first of all, not every dollar is earned the same way. not all business is good business. You start, the longer you're on your entrepreneurial journey, the more you realize that you do have an instinct for, is this a good client? On either side, talent or hiring. Is this a good event? Is this something that I can, even if I don't want to believe it, I'm already starting to get enough red flags that no matter what we do, this just isn't going to go well. Right. So someone on this team, one side or the other, is just not going to be happy. Mm-hmm. So you start to refine that and you start listening to your gut more, and then you end up in a beautiful place of truly working with people on both sides that you genuinely enjoy.
Yeah. Have you ever taken on a client knowing that it may not totally align with your values, your goals, but you knew there was a big payday at the end of it?
Unfortunately, the short answer is yes. The no part is I took them on knowing there wouldn't be a big payday at the end, but I so wanted to help them because there was something in their personal story that pulled at my heart. Yeah. But you also kind of know, there's a reason why they haven't been successful. And there's a difference between wanting to be someone's manager and being their cheerleader. And it's the ones where I saw more in them than I think they saw in themselves. And then after trying, you realize, nope, they're where they are because that's where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. Sometimes you really want to help somebody, but against your better judgment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you because there's just something in their story or something about them that you so desperately you want to help them, and you can. Yeah. But you can also start to see the cracks early on and go, I'm not sure they're ready. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me a little about, on a macro level, what's happening in the speaking industry overall? What are the trends you're seeing? Things like that.
They change pretty darn quick. So, if you had asked me 4 years ago, DE&I, everything, that's what we were looking at. Yeah. Now, and then after that, it was definitely supply chain, for the first 2 years post-COVID. Now, what we're seeing a lot is, which I really like, it's both AI and human connection.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Dichotomy there, yeah.
Exactly, which I find so interesting because they are on other ends of the spectrum, but the leading companies know they must embrace both. Yeah. Because AI is powerful and it is wonderful. It really is. What it is doing is so groundbreaking, and we're living in an era of such disruption and transformation. It's a tremendously wonderful, exciting time. Now, granted, I work with some of the greatest AI speakers there are. So I hear both the good and the bad. On the human connection side, so many people, they either want to bring their teams back into the office because they know that there is something about being live and in person that's best. Yeah. But they also know that's not practical today. It's never going to come back to the way it was 7 years ago, pre-COVID, where everyone knows they have to be in an office 40 hours a week, 9 to 5. Yeah. Flex time is what it's all about, and I certainly understand and embrace that. But right now, more and more people are contacting also as, we don't want our teams feeling like they're working in silos. How do we mentor new hires if we're never in the same space? How do we create programming that is going to be educational, but also engaging and interactive? Because we do spend so much time sitting in a chair, just looking at our computer, looking at another webinar, logging on to something else to listen to. So if we're going to bring people together, we really want it to be the most impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. How does that apply with your business with speakers? I mean, are most of the engagements, are they let's say you're like a sales organization? Is it like a big sales kickoff, or do you guys do smaller, intimate things in office with companies, or do those look differently than they did 5 years ago?
Well, I will tell you, they look a lot different. Well, 5 years ago, our industry was dead on arrival. COVID, no one was doing live events when no one could leave their house. So that was, talk about, an entrepreneurial journey of starting a company.
You started this, essentially, you relaunched it 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, technically, it was a year before COVID that we started kind of testing the waters, going back, seeing if I still wanted to do this again.
Yeah.
And, spent a year, again, like dipping my toe in, and it was going really well.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're ready. And like so many other people were like, 2020? It's going to be our year. Yeah. Like, we got this. Yeah. We spent 2019 talking to some athletes again, working on their management, getting them lined up with some new keynote speeches, starting to reach out to my old corporate contacts, get things lined up. Yeah. And we were starting 2020, of course, already looking at months of bookings. So when I say that we're really starting our 5th year, it's because I now say, okay, hard stop. We can't really look at that data and those numbers if we're going to do projections. Yeah. Yeah. Really, we've had 4 full complete years, and we're now in year 5. Mm-hmm. So, that's, one of the biggest things.
Yeah. And you're probably doing more virtual stuff now, or
no, we
less
do
now?
Very little virtual.
Okay.
Yeah, we really do. And, the Seth Godin event is virtual because Seth actually does not travel. He has, for, his environmental conviction of not wanting to add to climate change, he says he flew for most of his professional life. So for Seth Godin, everything is virtual. Okay. For everyone else, they're still zipping around the world. Yeah. Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah, but I'm sure a guy like Seth Godin, he's been there, done that a little bit. Now it's very comfortable to be able to hop on. I don't know what his fees are. I'm sure he makes good money for an hour on Zoom, and then go back to your day or whatever. So
absolutely. And he's one of the few people who truly can engage an audience virtually at the same level that most people can only do in person. Yeah.
But that is kind of the power of the era that that we live in today, that you have that option, that choice. Mm-hmm. There's even a lot of people that do podcasts remote, and I'm probably going to get to the point where we will do some remote podcasts, but I've really prided myself on being able to have these in-person connections, a little bit better production quality, just in person. You just have a much stronger connection with people when you're in person.
You do. And, along that train of thought, just Wednesday evening, I put together a small dinner party for some women that I work with that are all powerhouse keynote speakers. Yeah. For the sole reason that I really consider all of these women my friends. We've worked together now for the last few years. Yeah. I know them well. And it was amazing because of just a few days ago, I realized, except for one, I had never been in the same room with any of them, ever.
Oh, really?
We had only known each other virtually. And you start to know someone so well just by getting on a Zoom link very quickly that sometimes you forget we've actually never been in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that phenomenon happen many times before. I even, back in my previous role I was a sales manager, and I during pandemic, I had to hire people and worked with them for a year before ever even meeting them in person. So, and you don't even realize that you never met because you just have that connection.
Exactly. And it was the same when we had interns during COVID. We always had a very strong team. A lot came from Villanova, University of Delaware, Penn State, Michigan, IU, and you're working so closely with this team that at the end of the semester, it's almost hard to remember, I've actually never been in the same room with you.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I work with a lot of clients who, they have a podcast, maybe they have a book they're working on, and they're kind of dabbling in speaking, or they're getting into it, or they're doing it, but they're maybe not at the point where, they might work with an agency or something like that. So talk to me about so let's first talk about someone who's not doing any speaking right now. Do you have maybe a couple of tips for how to get started? And then maybe further down the spectrum, maybe they're doing it a little bit more now. Mm-hmm. When does it make sense to approach Mollie Plotkin to get representation?
Sure. So the first thing I always challenge people who say, I want to be a keynote speaker. There's a difference between a good storyteller and a keynote speaker.
Okay.
Also, I then challenge people to say, tell me what is so unique about either your story or the keynote that you feel that you can put together that someone's going to pay you to come out and do it. Because there's a big difference between I give it good advice, I feel I'm inspirational, all of those things, versus a really impactful keynote speaker or storyteller. So, because you always have to remember, if someone has hired a keynote speaker, they're not only investing by writing a check and having that person come out. If it's a meeting that has, let's say, 1,200 of their employees in it, they've taken 1,200 of their employees who are not out doing sales calls or, working, now they have non-productive hours to be sitting in that room for that time. So what are you able to instill in them that's going to make them better in the best case scenario, personally, professionally, impactful, and engaging? And right now, to be able to engage in any audience for their attention is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certainly a battle for attention right now.
Yes.
So do you work with talent as they come on board? Like how much are you investing in kind of shaping their messaging and maybe doing some media training or things like that?
So we really enjoy the ideation process with both our talent and our corporations. So what we find often, especially with our athletes, they are ready to do a keynote speech. They want to be out there. We prefer working with talent that is fully retired. There's not as many conflicts of interest. They have got more free time, all of that. So they often think people are, they want to hear from me because I played the game. The truth is, once we start talking to them, it's their personal stories that resonate so much more. So it's the best keynote speakers, we feel, are people that have done something extraordinary in their lives. I mean, something that's their name recognition. That's the lure of why people want to fill those seats and listen. But at the kernel of the message, it's something that everyone in the room can relate to. So, I think about, again, Kevin Riley's story, is that, he talks about, again, what it felt like playing for his hometown team and talking about, getting ready to run through the tunnel, and he's in Philadelphia and they're playing the Cowboys. And it's Monday Night Football. And he says, I had to turn around and look to make sure my name was actually on the back of this jersey because he couldn't believe that he was living his dream.
Yeah.
4 years later, as I said, being given last rites, not knowing if he would survive a surgery. Now, God willing, none of us are ever going to walk that path.
Yeah.
But the purpose of his story is, the beauty of life is, no matter how high you're riding, you need to understand it's not going to last. And no matter how bad things are, you need to understand it's not going to last. And that there's always that circle. And those are the messages that everyone in the audience, everyone's going through something. If they're either getting ready to go through it, knee deep in it, or they've just started to get out of it, that are going to relate to that story. And God willing, most of them are not quarter amputees, which is what he's gone through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, the best storytellers and probably the best speakers that you work with are able to share their story, but every single person in that audience is able to maybe pull something out of that or see themselves in a situation or get motivated to do something.
Bingo. That's exactly it. And so to answer your question, what do people who want to get started, what are they looking for? That's what they really need to challenge themselves with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, if let's say I was a really successful salesperson and I have a lot of tips and tricks to motivate people and help them be better salespeople, that sometimes I refer to as, that's just a sugar high. You're having someone come in who's going to tell you, just work a little harder and you're going to try this, because whatever you did that worked, that's great, it worked for you. Maybe those are tried and true lessons. There's also a good chance that it worked because of your industry, or there was something else. There was something that biases those results.
Right. Yeah, I think that stories, and we tell stories every single day as well. I mean, I think, just if you can figure out, there's one way to just give with information, but people, lead with stories, and people tend to buy with emotion, and they get bought in with that, right? And then they kind of justify with facts and figures and things like that. So
Absolutely. Another great example, I did a call this morning with, again, I say this all the time, one of my favorite clients, Mark Priestley, F1 McLaren team, lead mechanic for 10 years. He was there during Lewis Hamilton. And to hear him talk about leading a Formula One team and what it takes to have accountability, to not place blame, to be prepared, to understand that, if you're giving it all, that you want to be on a team where everyone's giving it all, their all, and the trust that it takes. There's a perfect example, because here is someone who the lessons he learned to become the number one F1 racing team are truly the same lessons that this group that we're going to be taking him to, that's going to have 1,800 salespeople in, it is the exact same message. But Mark did it at, as he said, when they were there, they learned to change a tire in 2 seconds. I mean, just think about what you can do in 2 seconds. Virtually nothing. But a well-run team learned to work together and trust each other, that they could all work in unison to change a tire in 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, people and processes, right?
Yes.
I think I saw, I don't know, I was definitely in some type of leadership talk or something like that once, and they showed a video where it was like, I don't know if it was F1, maybe it was like Indy stock cars or something like that, but it was changing a tire like 50 years ago versus now, and it's like, it's like 30-second difference or something like that. Yeah.
Right. And it's amazing, but that's what I'm talking about lessons that really do translate to so many different areas. But gosh, there's a huge wow factor hearing Mark Priestley tell it, and his lived experience is really phenomenal.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So local, some recent, Saquon Barkley, right? He's on your roster.
Yes.
So Super Bowl winner here. Any other current Eagle players?
Yes.
Or?
So just today alone, we have Saquon going to another event. Very excited to bring him out to a fundraiser out in Lancaster, United Disabilities Foundation, who does amazing work. We're Jordan Mailata to a group. Trying to think who else. Cooper DeJean. Yes. Yeah. So no, we've been very busy.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about a business? Like we talked about speakers and how to get into but why should I invest in a speaker for my conference or sales kickoff or something like that? Talk through that process a little bit.
So the shortest answer is, there's a saying, if you want your children to hear something, have someone else whispered in their ear. And it's the same thing in business. It's one thing for the leader, the team leader, the CEO, the president to go in and deliver a message. But when you hear it from a Mark Priestley or a Julie Wainwright or a Kevin Riley, it's going to land completely differently. And what we pride ourselves on is a really deep intake process, so that before that keynote speaker shows up on that stage, we've done an extensive pre-call with the company, so that when my speaker is on that stage, everyone in the audience is going to know they are part of their business. So what they're delivering is with such conviction that they are all on the same team. So for example, one of the calls we were on this morning, it was really going over the core pillars of this company, so that Mark Priestley, when he goes up there, he's going to be quoting those pillars. And the reason they chose him is because his work with Formula One aligned perfectly to what this company does and their focus on mindset and purpose and leadership and team building and all of those things. Yeah. So that's really the beauty, is that you're having someone deliver the message that you need your audience to hear in an impactful, memorable way. And in the best scenarios, that they're going to remember for months, if not years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that quote that you said about if you want something to stick, have someone else tell it.
Isn't it the truth?
So true, yeah.
Absolutely. Everyone who has kids knows that, I can tell them over and over again my thoughts on something, and then a complete stranger will say it, and all of a sudden it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. So, business owner, Mollie Plotkin, just any as an entrepreneur, a founder, along your way of building a company, we got your story, but what does your business look like today? How many employees do you have, or, what does that look like?
Sure. So we run a very, very tight, streamlined team.
Okay.
And part of our success has also been that when you represent some of the greatest business minds and leaders and creators in the world, step back and start listening and learning from them.
Yeah.
So we are a very streamlined team of 4 because thanks to Charlene Lee, who is one of the greatest speakers on AI, disruptive technologies, and leadership, we not only bring her to our audiences, but she also has become a friend. And when we talk about our own business, we now challenge ourselves. Every level of growth that we've had, we call it the year of automation. Yeah. We are going to implement as much automation, AI, better procedures before we invest in bringing on a new employee. Mm-hmm. And having that mindset from our team has made us more nimble. It has left us really open to better ideas and also new technologies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the technologies that are out there today, allow you to be almost superhuman, if you will. Yeah.
It is. And so, look, there's a lot that you still need to be there for. And I am a bit chained to my laptop and my phone. They need to be with me all the time. Even sitting here today, I brought it with me and said, could I charge it?
Right.
Because it is our lifeblood, and having that quick response, human touch, customer service is paramount to our success. But once we've connected those dots, there's so many internal procedures that we now just keep streamlining and doing faster and faster. Sure. So we're able to really see some tremendous growth, but keep our overhead really low.
Yeah. What was your first hire? You obviously started the business, you were hustling, and then at what point did you had to bring on somebody, and what was that role?
Sure. Well, I'm very proud that the people who work for me all started out as interns.
Okay.
So they started out, and this is, again, the beauty of entrepreneurship and having a team that is willing to take a risk on you, is willing to grow with you, and also is, again, to keep using the word, very nimble in all of what they do. So Nick Perhala was my first hire, and Nick started out back in the day, it's now years ago, as more of a content creator. He's an unbelievably talented writer, and so we were doing a lot of content creation, writing media kits, doing the web pages and all of that. Fast forward 4 years, he is a mastermind of SEO. And what he has been able to learn, teach himself has been phenomenal. So, and then, Derek Victor, same thing. Derek is an unbelievably strong writer. He's now our logistics expert. He's our lead people person. His ability to understand the talent, to be able to keep everything so organized. Because at the end of the day, our talent has come to us because they're really busy. They need that support staff, and they need that dossier that's going to tell them everything, where they need to be, what time, when the car is picking them up, who is this company, all of that briefing sheet. We couldn't do it without Derek doing that. Yeah. So again, as we grow, we've been very, very lucky.
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm. So a lot of focus on content, SEO. Is that where most of your marketing? I imagine you have a lot of relationships at this point where it's just referrals and things like that. Are you doing advertising or marketing much?
We have
of the organic content.
We have been very blessed. We have never done paid content. We have been able to do everything organically. Yeah. And right now, it's amazing. We are very, very lucky that we have developed the reputation that we have. So we've become a very secure, safe agency that the biggest companies in the world trust. And to be able to say that I do it really from my dining room in Bryn Mawr is pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I can really tell that the Mollie Plotkin Group is like, you have carved out sort of this really unique position in the market where you're managing talent, you're the speaker agency, you're kind of the go-to in the Philly area for sports. So, really fascinating conversation today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Where can people find more about you? How can they contact you for booking?
Yes, well, thank you. We always say the best thing is go online. The first thing you can do is go to our website, which is mollieplotkin.group.com. That's the best way to get as much information quickly. Give us a call, send us an email, but really go to the website.
Great. Yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes here. And Mollie, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening today. This was an original production by Shoemaker Films, LLC. If you enjoyed today's content, please consider subscribing on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your content. Follow us on Instagram at Shoemaker Films. If you're a business either interested in our services or you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please get in touch by using the contact form on our website, shoemakerfilms.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.